Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something powerful today. If you truly want to change your life, if you want to see success, joy, and confidence rise up in you, then you have to kill that weak version of yourself. That version that doubts, complains, procrastinates, and gives up every time life gets tough. It's time to bury that person once and for all. Every one of us has two versions living inside us. One is strong, fearless, disciplined, and ready to take on challenges. The other is lazy, scared, full of excuses, and always looking for comfort. The moment you decide which version you will feed, that's the moment your destiny begins to shift. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. Every single one of us has two versions living inside. One is strong, confident, fearless, ready to do what it takes. The other one is weak, doubtful, and afraid of the very work required to build a better life. The weak version makes excuses, delays action, and talks you out of every opportunity that could change your story. The strong version believes in effort, faith, and perseverance. A fight between these two versions happens every single day, and the truth is, the one that wins is the one you feed the most. If you keep feeding your excuses, your fear, and your comfort, that weak version will keep running your life. But if you start feeding your discipline, your courage, and your belief, the strong version of you will begin to rise. You have to understand that the weak version of you doesn't disappear just because you want it to. It dies only when you stop giving it power. Every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, you're keeping that weak version alive. Every time you say, I'm too tired or it's too hard, you're keeping that weak version strong. The weak version loves comfort. It loves to stay safe, to avoid risk, to play small. But comfort never created greatness. Nobody becomes successful by being comfortable. You grow only when you're willing to get uncomfortable, when you're willing to stretch, when you're willing to feel that pain that comes from pushing beyond your limits. That's when transformation happens. Killing that weak version of yourself starts in your mind. It's not about fighting the world. It's about fighting yourself. Your biggest enemy isn't out there. It's the voice inside your head that keeps telling you you're not good enough, you're not ready, or you can't do it. That voice is lying to you. It's the part of you that's afraid of change. You see, the weak version of yourself wants to protect you from failure. But what it's really doing is protecting you from growth. Every time you listen to that weak voice, you rob yourself of becoming who you were meant to be. You have to make a decision every morning when you wake up. Who am I going to be today? Am I going to be the strong version that takes action, faces fear, and keeps moving? Or am I going to be the weak version that hides behind excuses and avoids effort? That decision defines your destiny. Successful people aren't special. They've just learned to stop letting their weak self lead the way. They feel fear, but they act anyway. They feel tired, but they show up anyway. They feel doubt, but they push through anyway. The difference between success and failure is not talent. It's the willingness to silence that weak voice and do what needs to be done. Let me tell you something from my own life. There were times I didn't believe I couldn't make it. Times I was broke, sleeping in my car, feeling like life had nothing left for me. That weak version of me kept saying, just quit. Maybe this dream isn't meant for you. But I had to look at myself and say, no, I refuse to quit. I'm going to keep believing. That's when everything started to change. The moment you kill that weak voice inside you and replace it with faith and grind, you become unstoppable. You can't have both. The weak you and the strong you living at full power. One has to die for the other to live. If you want to see success, you must be willing to let go of every habit that keeps you small. The weak version of you loves comfort food, distractions, gossip, and wasting time on things that don't move your life forward. The strong version of you reads, plans, prays, learns, and works. You can't serve both. You can't live with both. You have to pick one. You have to kill the weak one so the strong one can lead your life. Killing that weak version also means taking full responsibility. Stop blaming people. Stop blaming your past. Stop blaming luck. The moment you blame, you give away your power. The strong version of you knows that nobody's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. You have to work for it. You have to earn it. And yes, it's hard, but that's the beauty of it. Because when you finally achieve your goal, you'll know you built it with your own hands, through your own effort, through your own fight. So when you feel like giving up, remind yourself, the weak version wants you to stop, but the strong version knows the reward is on the other side of pain. When you don't feel like waking up early, remember, that's the weak version talking. When you don't feel like working out, when you don't feel like studying, when you don't feel like chasing your dream, remember, the weak version feeds on your laziness, but the strong version is built through discipline. The more discipline you build, the weaker that lazy version becomes. Ladies and gentlemen, every great person you admire had to go through this same fight. They had to face their weakness, their fears, and their self-doubt. They had to kill that weak part of themselves before they could rise into greatness. It's not an overnight process. It's a daily battle. But if you make that decision today, if you wake up tomorrow with the same fire and keep choosing the strong version of yourself day after day, you'll become someone you never thought you could be. You'll start living the life you were always meant to live. Because when you finally silence that weak voice inside you, that's when your power begins. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is, most people lose the battle with themselves long before life ever beats them. They don't fail because they aren't smart enough or talented enough. They fail because they listen to that weak version inside that keeps whispering, take it easy. You can do it tomorrow, or you're not ready yet. That weak version of you is patient. It waits quietly for the moment you hesitate, and then it steps in, convincing you to stop, convincing you to play small, convincing you that comfort is better than growth. But the strong version of you, the one that wants more, the one that dreams big, the one that's hungry for success, can't survive in a body ruled by weakness. You've got to make a decision today that you are done letting that weaker self run your life. You see, the weak version of you loves comfort zones. It loves to do what's familiar because familiarity feels safe. But comfort is a silent killer. It slowly steals your ambition, your drive, your edge. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you teach your mind to settle. You teach it that mediocrity is acceptable. The strong version of you thrives on discomfort because that's where growth lives. The strong version says, I don't care if it's hard, I'm going to do it anyway. The weak version says, let me wait until I feel ready. But if you wait to feel ready, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. The strong version of you understands that success requires sacrifice. It requires waking up when you don't feel like it, working when you're tired, and believing when no one else does. There are no shortcuts, no magic formulas, and no easy paths. The weak version wants the reward without the effort, the success without the struggle, the glory without the grind. But life doesn't work that way. You can't climb to the top carrying your excuses with you. You have to drop them one by one until only the strongest, most determined version of you remains. The weak version of you also thrives on comparison. It looks at other people and says, they better than me, they had it easier, they were lucky. But the strong version of you doesn't care who's ahead. It only cares about progress. The strong version knows that every minute you spend comparing is a minute stolen from your own journey. The strong version knows that your story is unique, your path is yours alone, and the only person you should compete with is the one you were yesterday. The weak version will tell you that you can't do what others have done. But the strong version reminds you that everyone who made it started from nothing. They just refused to quit. You have to train your mind like a muscle. The weak version of you is like flab. It grows when you don't train it. The strong version grows when you push through pain, through fatigue, through fear. Every time you keep going when your mind says stop, you are killing that weak version a little more. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you are starving that weak self of its power. Strength doesn't come from what you do once in a while. It comes from what you do every single day. The repetition, the consistency, the discipline. That's what transforms you. And yes, it's going to hurt. You're going to lose people who don't understand your grind. You're going to face nights where you doubt yourself. You're going to have days when you feel like nothing is working. That's when the weak version of you will start to whisper again, telling you to quit. But that's the test. That's the moment where your strong version is forged. When everything in you says stop, but you take one more step, that's strength. When you fail but still get up, that's power. When you're scared but still move forward, that's courage. You build the strong version of yourself by doing exactly what the weak version refuses to do. Let me tell you something. Life doesn't reward the comfortable. It rewards the courageous. You can't hide behind excuses and expect success to find you. You've got to fight for it. You've got to demand it. You've got to be willing to do what most people won't so you can live the life most people can't. The weak version of you will always be louder when life gets hard, but the strong version will always be stronger if you feed it with action, with persistence, with faith. You can't just talk about killing that weak version. You got to act like it. You got to train every day like your life depends on it, because it does. The weak version of you is built on fear. The strong version is built on faith. Fear says, what if I fail? Faith says, what if I fly? Fear says you're not enough. Faith says you are made for this. You can't hold on to fear and expect to rise. You have to choose faith even when you can't see the outcome. You have to believe in your strength, even when life keeps testing it. The strong version of you already exists. It's just buried under layers of doubt and hesitation. You don't need to find it, you need to uncover it. Every challenge, every setback, every hard moment is a chisel shaping you into that stronger version. So ladies and gentlemen, when you wake up tomorrow and the alarm goes off, and that weak version tells you to hit snooze, remember what's at stake. Remember why you started. Remember that the person you want to become can't exist until the weak version dies. Every action you take either strengthens your weakness or your strength. Every choice is a step closer to who you meant to be or a step backward into who you used to be. The choice is yours. Feed your power, starve your weakness, and watch how your entire life begins to change, because when you finally kill that weak version of yourself, you unlock the unstoppable force that's been waiting inside you all along. Ladies and gentlemen, every one of us has a moment in life when we realize that the only thing standing between us and the life we dream about is our own weakness, not our parents, not our environment, not luck, but the version of ourselves that keeps choosing easy over effort, fear over faith, and comfort over commitment. That weak version of you is like a shadow. It follows you everywhere, waiting for the moment when you start to doubt yourself, when you start to question if you're really capable. And that's when it steps in and says, just stop. It's not worth it. But the truth is, every time you listen to that voice, you give it power. Every time you give in to fear or delay action, you keep that weak version alive. You have to starve it. You have to make the decision every single day that you're not going to let your weaker self write your story. The weak version of you is built from excuses. It says things like, I didn't have the right start, I don't have the time, or I'll do it when things are better. But here's the truth. There is never a perfect time. There will always be problems, distractions, struggles, and reasons to quit. If you wait for the perfect conditions to start, you'll be waiting forever. The strong version of you knows that success is built in the middle of chaos, not outside of it. It's built when you're tired, when you're unsure, when you're scared, but still willing to move forward. Because real strength doesn't come from what's easy, it comes from what challenges you the most. Killing that weak version of yourself means taking control of your thoughts. It means refusing to let negativity become your default setting. You can't win the battle of life if you lose the battle of your mind. The weak version loves to remind you of your past mistakes, to replay your failures like an old song. But the strong version knows that your past was only a lesson, not a life sentence. You are not who you were yesterday. You are who you decide to become today. The strong version looks at pain and says, this is my teacher. It looks at setbacks and says, this is my training. Every hard moment in your life is designed to make you stronger. If you stop running from it, you see, the weak version of you will always look for comfort. And comfort is the enemy of greatness. It's easy to stay the same. It's easy to talk about your dreams instead of chasing them. But nothing grows in comfort. You have to be willing to stretch yourself beyond what feels safe. You have to be willing to face rejection, to make mistakes, to fall and get back up again. That's how champions are built. Not through perfection, but through persistence. Every failure you ever had was preparing you for your breakthrough. You just have to stop quitting before you get there. The strong version of you is already inside, but it's buried under fear, doubt, and old habits. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, that strong version rises. Every time you choose action over excuses, it gets stronger. You are shaping your future with the decisions you make today. When you wake up early to work on your dream, instead of scrolling through your phone, you're training the strong version. When you keep pushing even after you fail, you're feeding your strength. When you stay focused while everyone else gives up, you're proving that the weak version no longer controls you. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. You can't inspire anyone else until you first conquer yourself. You can't lead. You can't build. You can't rise if the weak version of you is still in charge. The world doesn't need more people making excuses. It needs people who rise despite them. The strong version of you is the one that inspires others without saying a word. When people see you working, grinding, showing up no matter what, they start to believe they can too. That's how strength spreads. It starts within you. There's a point in every journey when you'll feel like you can't go any further. You'll feel like you've done all you can. That's when the weak version whispers the loudest, telling you it's time to stop. But that moment, right there is where the strong version is born. When you push through pain, when you fight through exhaustion, when you refuse to give up, even though everything in you wants to quit, that's when you're killing the weak version for good. That's when you discover that the limits you thought were real were just walls built by fear. You are stronger than your excuses. You are stronger than your pain. You are stronger than your past. But you have to believe it before the world does. The weak version of you wants proof before action. The strong version knows that faith comes first. You have to walk in the direction of your dreams even when the path isn't clear. You have to trust that every small step you take matters, even if you can't see the result yet. Every step forward weakens that old version that used to hold you back. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment when you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I becoming? Are you becoming stronger, wiser, and more disciplined? Or are you letting fear dictate your life? Because one of those versions will win, and it all depends on the choices you make today. The weak version wants to stay comfortable, but comfort will cost you your dreams. The strong version demands more from you, but that demand is what builds greatness. So stop letting that weak version talk you out of your potential. Stop letting it convince you that you can't change. You have greatness inside of you. It's just waiting for you to decide. Kill that weak version today and watch how your entire life begins to transform before your eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, the weak version of you is always looking for an escape. It doesn't want to be challenged. It doesn't want to be uncomfortable, and it doesn't want to be exposed. It loves easy things, fast results, and quick satisfaction. But life doesn't reward easy. It rewards effort, persistence, and faith. The weak version of you is built from fear, while the strong version is built from faith. Every time you choose fear, you stay in the same place. But every time you choose faith, even when you're scared, you take one step closer to becoming the person you were meant to be. You cannot grow if you keep protecting your weakness. You have to be willing to face it head on and destroy it before it destroys your potential. The weak version of you hides behind excuses and self-doubt. It says, I'm not ready, I'm too old, or I'm not talented enough. It tries to convince you that you don't have what it takes. But let me tell you something. God didn't make a mistake when he made you. You were born with everything you need to succeed. The problem is not that you're not capable. The problem is that you keep giving power to the voice that tells you you're not. The strong version of you understands that every great thing starts small. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start, to move, to act. The weak version waits for motivation. The strong version builds discipline. The weak version is emotional. It reacts to everything. It gets offended easily, gives up quickly, and blames others for its struggles. The strong version takes responsibility. It understands that life is not supposed to be fair. It's supposed to test you. Every test is an opportunity to rise above the old you. Every time you face a challenge, you have a choice. Let it break you. The strong version chooses to grow. It doesn't cry about what went wrong. It learns from it. The weak version keeps replaying the past. The strong version keeps rewriting the future. You can't reach the next level if you're still entertaining the old habits that belong to your weaker self. You can't move forward if you keep holding on to laziness, negativity, and fear. You have to change your environment, your mindset, and your energy. The weak version of you is comfortable with people who don't challenge you, people who accept mediocrity. But the strong version seeks out people who push it higher, who demand growth, who won't let you settle. Because the truth is, the people around you either feed your weakness or fuel your strength. Killing the weak version of yourself also means silencing the lies it keeps telling you. It tells you you're not good enough because you failed before. It tells you that you're too late to start over. But the strong version knows that failure isn't the end, it's the beginning of wisdom. Every time you fail, you learn. Every time you fall, you rise stronger. The weak version wants you to quit because it fears the pain of growth. But the strong version knows that pain is a sign that you're getting better. You can't have strength without struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, this world doesn't belong to those who give up when life gets hard. It belongs to those who refuse to back down. The weak version of you wants comfort, but comfort will cost you your destiny. The strong version of you wants purpose, and purpose will cost you your comfort. You have to decide which one matters more. Every day is a new opportunity to choose strength over weakness, progress over excuses, and faith over fear. Kill that weak version today, not tomorrow, not someday, today, because the moment you do, your life will never be the same again. Ladies and gentlemen, that weak version of yourself is not some external enemy. It lives inside you, and it speaks with your own voice. It tells you to take it easy when you should be pushing harder. It tells you to quit when you should be persevering. It whispers doubt into your dreams and makes you question your worth. But you have to understand, that voice doesn't disappear until you stop listening to it. You have to silence it with action, with courage, and with consistency. You have to prove to yourself every single day that you are stronger than the thoughts trying to break you. That weak version doesn't want you to grow because growth hurts. Growth requires change, and change requires sacrifice. But you can't become who you meant to be if you keep holding on to who you used to be. The weak version of you loves to complain. It blames other people, bad luck, or unfair situations for where you are in life. But the strong version takes ownership. It says, no matter what happened, it's still my responsibility to rise. You can't change your life until you take full responsibility for it. You can't keep saying it's not my fault and expect things to change. The weak version stays stuck in the past, but the strong version focuses on what can be done right now. It doesn't waste time on what's going wrong. It focuses on how to make it right. You must stop giving power to problems and start giving power to possibilities. Every single day, you're faced with small choices that decide which version of you wins. When the alarm goes off and you hit snooze, the weak version wins. When you skip the gym, make excuses, or avoid hard work, the weak version wins. But when you get up, even though you're tired, when you keep going despite failure, when you take action even when you don't feel ready, that's when the strong version wins. You have to win those small battles daily. Success isn't one big decision. It's 1,000 small victories over your weaker self. Every time you push through, you're building a mindset that refuses to surrender. The weak version also thrives on fear. Fear of what others think, fear of rejection, fear of failing. But fear is just an illusion. It's a wall built by your mind. The strong version knows that failure is not fatal and rejection is not the end. The only real failure is quitting. The strong version uses fear as fuel. It looks at what scares it and says, that's exactly where I need to go. Every time you walk through fear, the weak version dies a little more, and the strong one takes over. You'll never find strength in comfort. You will find it in the moments you face what terrifies you most. The weak version of you is obsessed with what others think. It wants validation, applause, and approval. But the strong version doesn't care about being liked. It cares about being authentic. It understands that greatness often comes with loneliness, that people may not understand your vision, and that's okay. You're not living for their approval, you're living for your purpose. When you finally stop trying to please everyone, you'll discover the power that's been waiting inside you all along. The strong version of you doesn't need permission to shine, it just does. Ladies and gentlemen, the weak version of you will always find an excuse, but the strong version will always find a way. The difference between the two isn't skill or intelligence, it's mindset. It's the decision to keep showing up, to keep believing, and to keep working even when it's hard. You can't become extraordinary while protecting the ordinary version of yourself. You have to be willing to let the old you die so that the new, stronger, wiser, and unstoppable you can rise. Kill that weak version of yourself, and you'll uncover a power you never knew you had, the power to transform your life from the inside out. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every person's life when they must look in the mirror and face the truth about who they are and who they've been pretending to be. That reflection you see is not just your face. It's a combination of your choices, your habits, your fears, and your faith. Somewhere inside that reflection lives the weak version of you, the one who plays small, avoids responsibility, and gives up when things get hard. And there's also the strong version, the fighter, the believer, the dreamer who refuses to quit. The question is, which version are you feeding? Because whichever one you feed daily becomes the one that controls your life. If you keep feeding your weakness with excuses and doubt, you'll stay stuck where you are. But if you start feeding your strength with faith, effort, and consistency, you'll unlock a life you didn't even know was possible. The weak version of you will always find a reason not to take action. It says things like, it's not the right time, I'm not ready, or maybe later. But the truth is, later becomes never. The longer you wait, the louder that weak voice gets. It wants you to believe you have all the time in the world when you don't. Life is moving right now. Opportunities are passing right now. Every moment you hesitate, that weak version tightens its grip on your destiny. The strong version, on the other hand, doesn't wait. It acts. It moves forward even when the path isn't clear, even when it doesn't have all the answers. Because action builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. You can't think your way into strength, you gotta work your way into it. The weak version of you avoids discomfort, but discomfort is the birthplace of greatness. The strong version understands that pain is temporary, but quitting lasts forever. Every time you push past your limits, you discover new levels of power within you. Growth doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens when life gets tough and you choose to keep going. You have to stop running from hard things. You have to stop protecting yourself from pressure. Diamonds are made under pressure, and so are champions. The strong version of you is waiting to be revealed, but it won't appear until you stop protecting your weakness and start embracing your struggle. The weak version of you is full of excuses. It blames people, situations, and circumstances. It says, I can't because they didn't help me. But the strong version says, I can because I'll help myself. You have to stop expecting people to save you. Nobody's coming to rescue you. You've got to rescue yourself. The moment you take full control of your life, your mindset shifts. You stop waiting and start creating. You start wishing and start working. That's when the strong version of you begins to dominate. The more responsibility you take, the more power you gain. The weak version hides behind complaints. The strong version stands tall and builds solutions. The weak version also loves to live in the past. It replays mistakes, regrets, and what ifs. But the strong version looks ahead. It forgives itself, learns the lesson, and moves forward. You can't grow if you're chained to yesterday. You've got to release the pain, the guilt, and the fear that's been holding you back. The strong version of you knows that your past was just preparation for the person you're becoming. Every setback, every failure, every disappointment, it all shaped you for this moment right now. Don't waste it by holding on to weakness. Ladies and gentlemen, the decision to kill that weak version of yourself is not a one-time choice. It's a daily battle. Every morning you have to wake up and decide who you're going to be today. Will you let fear lead you, or will you let faith guide you? Will you let excuses win, or will you let effort rule? You can't live two lives. You can't be weak and strong at the same time. One must die for the other to live. So make that decision today. Kill that weak version that's been holding you back. Step into your power, your purpose, and your promise. Because when you finally silence that weakness within you, the world will meet the real you. the one who's unstoppable, unbreakable, and born to rise.